Now it is time to start the stir frying process for our fried rice. We're going to give you 4 tablespoons of oil maximum just to make sure that you don't use too much. Not that we're trying to save money, but we just don't want to have greasy fried rice. I have my wok already turned on ahead of time, so it's getting nice and hot. I do want to use the power burner setting, which is the front right burner. Get that nice and hot so my oil is shimmering. I'm going to be cooking off the bacon first. I'm stir frying this. This is my raw protein. Okay, so I do want to make sure that I get my board out of the way, off to the side, washed as quickly as we can, or at least have people in class in my group aware that we have a source of contamination in the kitchen. Someone doesn't come, look at that board, sit down and cut something else up that they're not going to cook. It's a classic way that we can have problems. The tools that we use are shovels of sorts. Hopefully you have a wooden handle on both. Sometimes they come up missing. The wooden handle allows these to sit on the side if that's what you end up doing and not having the heat transfer to burn your hands. If you end up having a shovel that doesn't have a wooden handle, try not to let it sit in the pan. You can also wear oven mitts. If you don't have such a shovel, of course, you could use tongs if necessary. The bacon that we're cooking off is going to release a fair amount of bacon grease, so we'll have to be set up for how we're going to drain this when we're done. You can then decide if you're going to use the bacon grease later on in the cooking process, which could add quite a bit of bacon flavor, but also a tremendous amount of cholesterol. Bacon grease more likely going to burn than the canola oil we're using, so you have to consider that as well. If you're not going to be using your bacon grease, we need to make sure that it's put into a community bowl, that I will be collecting your bacon grease to make sure it gets disposed of properly. Coffee can underneath the sink is how most people do it at home. We just definitely don't want it going down the drain. Alright, so I'm going to be turning off the camera as this bacon is about done so I can drain it off on the side and then we'll continue. Okay, so the bacon is done. It's draining off on the side. I'm going to be using the vegetable oil. There is some still residual bacon grease in there, that's fine. So a first tablespoon of oil was used with the bacon. Second tablespoon of oil, here's a little scallion that fell in, is going to be done for the onions, okay, and the frozen vegetables. So recall that we said the onions were going to get a head start. I kind of use my stir-fry shovels as a way of picking up the food. I just want to get some color on these. And as we said, we do want to season these, a little salt and a little pepper as we go. The steamed rice that I'm using later on did not have any salt put into it. I'd rather add salt in the layers of cooking as we go. And of course, we're going to finish this with soy sauce, so that's going to add a lot of sodium flavor as well. When I feel that these onions have gotten a little bit of color on them, not all the way caramelized, but a little gloss and all, then it's time to add my aromatics. Remember that the aromatics are the ginger and the garlic. This is only going to get stir-fried for about 30 seconds or less. The aromatics mean that they release aroma, so when I can start to smell ginger and garlic, long before I see any change in color or turning black, then it's time to move on to the next stage. The wok has a flat surface, as you can see, so if something's getting a little bit hotter than what I want it to be, you can move things up to the side so that they don't have the concentrated heat on the bottom, which is what I'll do with the aromatics because we are going to add in the frozen vegetables. Notice please there is no additional oil being added at this time. The frozen vegetables themselves are going to give up a good amount of water. So those can start on the bottom so that more of the heat is concentrated there. After a little bit of time, I will mix in the onion, garlic, and ginger mix. So this takes just a moment. We'll go ahead and stir those in now. Alright, this is the next section of cooking. It's been about 2 minutes since I paused the last video and have mixed the vegetables around. I want to pull this away from the pan and see that it is releasing steam on its own, so it may not quite be there. I do see steam coming off. And then for the idea of surface area and the largest piece taking the longest to cook, if I reach in and grab a green bean and I bite into it, I want to make sure that it is not icy and frozen inside. This is warmed through. That's good. I don't want it to become soggy by being overcooked. Okay, at this point, we can go ahead and get our bacon back in if we choose to, or it could happen later in the process. I'll go ahead and get that back in. There might be a little bacon grease that came with it. That's all good flavor. All right, so the bacon's already cooked. We're just kind of mixing this in. It's at this point that we can go ahead and get this off the heat. Now it's going to be maybe warm on the other side, and the camera is kind of in the way, but this handle up here, which isn't on all the woks, is a handy way that you can pick this up and pour out a great amount of food. All right, heat is still on. We want this thing on high the entire time, so we're going to go ahead and move forward with the eggs. We put a little bit of oil in the eggs to help them not stick. A tablespoon of oil in the wok. Definitely want to coat the sides with this. And this is honestly the most challenging part of doing fried rice and having things turn out right. And that is frying the egg without it getting burned and sticking to the pan. So, as soon as that gets in, mix it up with your shovel. You just want it to be soft set, not cooked, overcooked, and burned. Burnt egg would make everything taste bad, but what you can kind of visualize is that if you end up burning your egg in this pan, throw it out, start over. Don't add burnt egg, so the rest of your dish is going to taste really, really bad. Alright, so if you feel that your wok trying to do an egg is just too challenging, of course you could always fry it on the side. So this is done all the way through. So if you had to, you could fry your egg in the Teflon pan. Less likely going to stick. Some woks are made of Teflon. Not a fan because the metal spatulas we're using would burn. Okay, if you end up with some burnt egg, this is going to be very loud. But I can certainly take and scrape out some of the egg just to get it out of the pan. That can go into the sink, say. Okay, a little hot to be going into the garbage can, and we're back on. All right, we have, say, 2 more tablespoons of oil. 1, 2. So, recap, tablespoon, say, for the bacon, tablespoon for the vegetables, tablespoon for the egg, maybe 2 tablespoons for the rice. This needs to coat the wok. This is where we actually fry off the rice. It is talking to me, the rice. It should sizzle when it hits the pan. I'm going to flatten this out. I'm certainly going to season this, salt and pepper again. Now, this is a smaller batch of only 2 cups. If you're doing 4-cup batch of rice, everything else would have been doubled. But when you get to the rice, being 4 cups, it might be a little bit more than what we can fry off at one time. So you may have to actually do the fried rice portion of it, this portion, in stages, and then just add it. Everything's going so quickly, we hope, that the food that's sitting in the bowl off camera is not getting cold. Now, I turn this rice, and you can see that it's glossy. It's got a shine to it. That's a good sign. So even though we call it stir frying, I really feel like I'm more stir shoveling. Okay, and I flatten it against the pan, increasing the surface area. If you feel like there was enough residual oil in the pan that you could have gotten away with 1 tablespoon, so be it. Because again, we don't want greasy fried rice. Alright, so back to the bowl that's off camera. Things are going so quickly, I'm not so worried about that food cooling down. I'm going to finish it in the wok to reheat. I'm not interested actually in putting a lid on it to trap the heat in. We're more likely going to collect steam, can lead to condensation, and make my food soggy. Alright, again, make sure this doesn't stick to the bottom, stirring it over. I make sure it's done by pulling it away from the heat. When I see steam coming off, then I know that it's been fried properly. Everything else back in. And ideally, there's not really much residue in the bowl of grease that's collected at the bottom, or puddles of water from steam. The steam was cooked out on the high intense heat. You have a little bit of rice sticking to the bottom, scrape that up. Actually should have better flavor when it's slightly brown. What in a paella, Spanish dish they call the sacarat, it's very challenging to make a paella and have that sort of slightly browned rice, but it has great flavor. So you got to know the difference between good burn, that's brown and flavor, and bad burn, that's black, that you don't want to scrape, or that you're going to eat around, or maybe even throw it out and start over. Alright, this is our fried rice. Everything is hot, steam is coming off. I haven't hit it yet with the soy sauce, and I will not. But remember, the garnish that would most likely be put on once it gets on the plate is the fresh green onions. And that is your portion for 2 people. Finish it with soy sauce, and good luck with the chopsticks.